This video is to help you with number 8 on CR Helper number 28. This problem involves being able to write and solve an equation, so that's what we're going to focus on. It says Joe went to Music Haven to buy 2 CDs. The blues CD, that's a type of music, was $4 more than the jazz CD. If the total bill was $25, how much did each CD cost? It says write and solve an equation where J is the cost of the jazz CD and T is the total bill. Okay, so we know if we take the cost of the blues CD plus the cost of the jazz CD, we'll get our total bill. Right? You take the cost of the first CD you buy, the cost of the second CD you buy, and you'll come up with your total bill. So now we want to use the variables they tell us. Write and solve an equation where J is the cost of the jazz CD. So in 7th grade and in 8th grade, we always use let statements. So we're going to let, oops, not X. Sorry about that. We're going to let J, that's what your teacher wants you to use, let J equal the cost of a jazz CD. Okay, now you know the blues CD was $4 more than the jazz CD. So your blues CD is $4 more than your jazz CD. So if you know your jazz CD is J, so we're going to write J for jazz CD. The blues CD was $4 more than the jazz. So if we take the jazz CD and we add 4 to it, that'll give us the cost of the blues CD, right? So they wanted you to let J be the cost of the jazz. If you take the J, the jazz cost, and you add 4 onto that, you'll get the cost of the blues. You know, once you know your cost of your blues and your cost of your jazz, you add those up to get your total. So let's, under cost of blues CD, what do we call it in terms of the expression? That was J plus 4. Keep your plus sign here. You got to add on the cost of the jazz CD. Well, what's the cost of the jazz CD? We call that J. Equals, and then you have your total bill. The total bill was T, which is 25. All right. So now let's combine these, J plus J. You know when we're talking variables with our algebra tiles, those are beautiful rectangles. So if you have a J plus a J, that gives us 2J. And another way you can think about it, the coefficient here would be 1J. The coefficient here would be 1J. 1 plus 1 gets us to 2J. 2J plus 4 equals 25. Now we're just going to solve this two-step equation, and that'll give us the cost of the jazz CD. You've been working on two-step equations in class. You focus on the side with the variable with the J. We first undo any addition or subtraction. So we're going to undo this addition of 4. How do we undo adding 4? What's the opposite of adding? Opposite of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 4 on the left side of the equal sign to zero that out. And if I'm going to do subtracting 4 on the left side of my equal sign, I also must subtract 4 on the right side of my equal sign to keep the equality. So 4 minus 4, that zeroes right out. What am I left with on this side? I'm left with 2J equals 25 minus 4 is 21. Then to solve this equation in my last step, I say, okay, 2 what J? That means 2 times J. If we do not see an operation in math, we assume it's multiplication. So I'm trying to solve for J. I say this is 2 times J. How do I undo multiplication? I undo multiplication with division. So to get J by itself, I need to divide, and in 7th grade in particular, hopefully in 6th, you use a fraction bar for division. So if I want to get J by itself, I need to divide that 2. 2 divided by 2 will be a fancy form of 1. So if I'm going to divide the left side by 2, I need to divide the right side of that equation by 2. And in 7th grade, you'll only be using fraction bars for division. 2 divided by 2, fancy form of 1. So what am I left with on this side? The cost of 1 jazz CD. So over here, I have to do 21 divided by 2, because in terms of the cost of a jazz CD, they're going to want to know in terms of money, and fractions are not going to be how we represent money. So this is 21 divided by 2. So we need to do 2 into 21. So we start here. 2 goes into 2 once. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract off. 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down the 1. How many times does 2 go into 1? 2 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 2 is 0. Subtract off, bring down that 1, and then we're like, I'm going to have a remainder. I don't want a remainder. I want to talk about money. So after this 21, there is a decimal point. I need to go ahead and drag that right up. Then on the inside of the box, I can add zeros after that decimal point. It won't change the value. And I needed to do that in order to drag that 0 down. Now I can say 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. But this is money. You'd never walk up to the cash register and say, oh, okay, that will be $10.5. No, they'd say that will be $10.50. So the cost of the jazz CD is $10.50. We know the cost of our blues CD will be the cost of the jazz plus 4. So I'm going to take, for the blues CD, the cost of my jazz plus 4. What was the cost of my jazz? The cost of my jazz was $10.50. I'm going to add $4 onto that. That's $14.50 for my blues CD. So the blues CD will be $14.50. How can we check if we've really done this correctly? We could add those together and hope to get 25. Let's do $10.50 plus, if the blues CD was $14.50, and I add that up, 0 and 0, 5 and 5 is 10, put down a 0, carry a 1. Make sure you carry down your decimal point. 4 and 1 is 5. 1 and 1 is 2. Yay! The total cost was $25. So your jazz CD was $10.50, your blues CD was $14.50. Hopefully that gives you a little review about writing equations and solving equations. And I'm pretty impressed because this is actually a 2-step equation, which you're going to spend some time working on in 7th grade. So hopefully that's a nice preview. Hope that helped.